Jujutsu Kaisen's power system is ridiculous, and in this video, we're going to be going over every curse technique we've ever seen in this series. So get ready to become a Jujutsu master. Let's start with a classic. Straw Doll technique is Nobara's ability, and it's not usually focused on the Straw Doll stuff. She mostly uses it to propel nails at her target, striking them with her hammer. Once an opponent is pierced by one, Nobara expands the curse energy within the nail, making it explode. She can also link an opponent with her Straw Doll for another long-range strike. Resonance allows Nobara to transfer damage from the doll to her target. She needs a portion of her opponent to use this, but it leads to a devastating strike. Whether up close or long distance, you shouldn't count her out since that hammer hurts too. Next, we've got Nanami's ratio technique. He divides a target with 10 lines and creates a weak spot at the ratio of 7:3. This allows him to have a weak spot to strike. Nanami can target any individual body part. He can also strike the environment with collapse, an extension of ratio that can create some spectacular damage. After that, we've got disaster flames. Jogo just shoots fire. Pretty simple. Okay, there's more to it than that. He can control the heat in the area around him, burning everyone within range. He can fire flames directly from his palms or head, intensifying heat for some insane power. See that purple flame? If the anime is being scientifically accurate, that means his flames reach temperatures of 71,000 degrees Fahrenheit. For context, an active volcano usually gets to about 2,190 degrees Fahrenheit. Jogo's fire is more than 30 times hotter than lava. He can even trap the battlefield, forming volcanoes in the ground and firing his attacks from them. It's a strong and versatile technique. Mahito's Idol Transfiguration doesn't have as many options for how you use it, but it's much scarier if it hits. One touch from the disaster curse is enough to transform the target's soul. It might be one of the most powerful curse techniques we've ever seen, since very few abilities can truly protect the soul. Now, in general, curse energy can help. If a sorcerer is strong enough, they can parry Mahito, but most would have to fight him at a range. If you get too close, a cunning fighter could take down just about anyone with this technique. But not all Jujutsu sorcery is that flashy. Construction is another rather limited technique. My Zenin can't do much more with it beyond making a bullet. It's got some legitimate versatility, but the sheer amount of power it needs limits what the user can do with it. But Yorozu, who is also able to use construction, took the technique to new heights. She created insect armor with it, along with a spear that produces infinite pressure. Comedian allows the user to manifest whatever they think is funny into reality. They can survive anything with cartoon physics. It's got a massive weak spot though. It relies entirely on the user's self-confidence. This is one of the few curse techniques you could beat just by talking. Explosive Flesh is more direct. The user just rips off a body part, throws it at an opponent, and they blow up. You need to be pretty good with reverse curse technique to heal yourself after throwing a body part, but that's the only limitation. Tool manipulation might sound like a boring ability, but in practice, it's pretty cool. This is Momo's curse technique, and it's what lets her fly on her broom. She has full control of it even when she's not sitting on it, and can launch wind attacks while flying through the air. The ability to fly is pretty rare in Jujutsu Kaisen, and this makes Momo one of the most mobile sorcerers who can fight her opponents from the air. But you can get even more creative with copy. Imagine having access to a whole roster of other people's curse techniques. Yuta does have a 5-minute timer on his access to this ability, but it is still pretty insane. As far as we can tell, he never loses access to techniques he's already absorbed. He can get ready for almost any fight, given time to copy the right technique. Boogie Woogie isn't as versatile, but any fighting sorcerer can get a lot of mileage out of it. One hand clap, and the two of you swap places. The sorcerer doesn't even have to swap with a willing target. When you try to hit the Boogie sorcerer, they can just swap with another person on your side, making you hit your friend. Even if it's not an attack, it's an extremely useful combat technique. Curse Spirit Manipulation is an amazingly versatile ability. It gives the user full command over even the most powerful curse spirits. A user can break curses down with maximum Uzumaki and turn their minions into a great big blast of energy. Uzumaki also lets the user get some of the benefits of copy, stealing a spirit's curse technique and using it. If the user has the time to locate powerful curses, their strength will go up dramatically. Puppet Manipulation is similar, although it needs a lot more preparation. It's another minion master ability, letting the user control a cursed corpse from a distance and infuse it with their own cursed energy. This lets a Jujutsu sorcerer pretty much be a mad scientist and even build a giant robot to fight their enemies. Unlike summoning or binding powers, the sorcerer can make their own minions and customize their abilities. But using them takes the sorcerer's curse energy. Technique Nullification is simple and devastating. It can be used to nullify any cursed technique, cursed item, or anything else where cursed energy was involved at any point. Jacob's Ladder, the most powerful move of this technique, almost killed Sukuna, forcefully ripping him out of his host body. Utahime's Solo Forbidden Area is the opposite of Nullification. It boosts a sorcerer's cursed energy, giving them a bigger power reserve and letting them put more into their techniques. She can use it on herself, but targeting another powerful sorcerer with it can be crazy too. The stronger they are to start with, the stronger Solo Forbidden Area makes them. Tengen has immortality. It leads to a long life by default, but it also led to Tengen's ascension to cursed spirit status. There's some crazy potential with this technique. While Tengen focuses more on barriers, someone who likes fighting more could do some incredible things with it. Auspicious Beast Summon is what would happen if cursed spirit manipulation was more focused on powering up the user. It summons spirit beasts into the user's body, allowing them to use their power. The user is limited to 4 defined spirits: Kaichi, Reiki, Kirin, and Ryu. Inverse is a bit of a crazy one. It messes with the force dynamics of attacks. Stronger hits get weaker, and weak techniques get stronger. But there are some weak spots. If you combine a weak and strong attack, you can get hit by it. Complex attacks aren't really vulnerable to it. And there's an upper limit to how much power it can invert. But that's a tough upper limit. A 40-story fall wasn't enough to take down Awasaka. If someone stays on the offensive, not giving their opponent a chance to come up with a decent plan, Inverse would be extremely tough to counter. Next, there's Takako Uro's sky manipulation. She manipulates the sky around her, turning it into a solid or semi-solid object. She can use it to levitate or distort space to avoid attacks. But her most devastating trick is Thin Ice Breaker. Takako creates a thin layer of sky, then shatters it with her strike. This basically creates a short-range shrapnel explosion, sending shards of sharp sky slamming into her opponent. It's a weird technique, but still pretty cool. By contrast, seance seems normal, but is completely insane when you think about its implications. The user can contact the dead, communicating with them freely. But what's really crazy is the channeling ability. By grabbing the target's soul and corpse, the seance technique user can transform into the target. They perfectly disguise themselves as the corpse and gain their physical abilities. This is a nasty ability for assassin sorcerers to use and should give the seance user access to the target's curse technique. Plus, they can use it on their friends. Blackbird manipulation isn't too impressive on the surface. It just lets the user control crows. Not special crows or monster killer assassin crows, just normal birds. But its user, Mei, gives us a pretty good demonstration of how a useless technique can still be effective. She uses her birds as the perfect spies, being able to monitor her opponents over a massive radius. When it's time to fight, she imbues cursed energy into them, turning them into explosive projectiles. Miracles is an oddly sentimental technique. The user saves up lucky moments. Every time something surprising happens, like seeing all the same numbers on a clock or getting through rush hour traffic with no red lights, it wipes your memory of what happened and gives you a little mark. Then, when you're fighting and your life's in danger, that miracle is consumed, and the world itself distorts reality to ensure you survive whatever just happened. While it is a purely defensive ability, the sheer power of this technique is insane. Sure, you've only got a limited number of uses, but while those charges stack up, you're unstoppable. Although Haruta Shigemo wasn't anyone important, his curse technique could rival some of the strongest we've ever seen. Uraume's ice formation is fairly simple, pretty much the same as Jogo's power, just going for ice instead of fire. Blazing Courage is a power that's a little ambiguous. Ogi Zenin dies too quickly to show off his full abilities level. Still, he's able to create fire that's solid enough to become a blade. That shouldn't be physically possible. It's likely that this would have been a badass technique. Pity that it was wasted on Ogi. But there are a bunch of Zenin clan members with a similar situation. We can sum up their curse techniques as not enough to take down Maki. Still, this is every curse technique, so let's go over them. Ranta Zenin's paralyzing eyes allows him to completely freeze an opponent. Maki was able to fight through it, but even with her superhuman strength, that took effort. Jinichi Zenin's missile fists are a pretty simple combat move. Throw energy fists at people, and they blow up. Chojuro Zenin's earthbending lets him manipulate earth by touching the ground and posing. Kirara Hoshi's Love Rendezvous Zodiac Connection makes it seem more complicated than it really is. Think of the numbers 1 through 5. Kirara tags people, items, or location with one of those numbers. This warps space to force anything tagged to move through the others in order. If Kirara tags you with number 1 and is standing by a door marked 5, you can't attack her directly. Firstly, you'd have to go through tags 2 through 4. This isn't an easy ability to fight with, but the support potential is immense. In some ways, it's close to Gojo's Infinity, stopping an attack from reaching you directly. Reggie Star's Contractual Recreation gives us another very broad ability. He uses receipts to give himself whatever was written on them. He mostly uses this for summoning items that attack his opponents, but he can even heal mid-combat. There's also no upper limit for what he can summon, as seen when he brings a whole house down on Megami. Just like with Takaba's Comedian, a cursed technique with tight rules like this doesn't have a firm upper power limit. Cursed Energy Discharge is just a beam weapon. It's pretty much an old school shonen attack. Take the time to charge it up, and it gets more powerful. It's simple and effective, but relies on the user's cursed energy. A weaker sorcerer probably wouldn't get much mileage out of it. G War Staff is more of a sideways take. You'd think that a cursed technique that gives you a weapon would help you deal damage, but no. Instead, it plays off Charles Bernard's love of manga. If he draws blood with a pen, he gets to break the fourth wall and see the next panel. Granted, the user can only see stuff that they would naturally be able to see. A cunning opponent could get stealthy and surprise Bernard. The War Staff also needs to land a hit first, and if Bernard wants to see further into the future, he needs to hit multiple times. But as far as we can tell, Bernard's future visions are perfectly accurate. You can't outright change the future he sees. It takes him time to set up his power, but once he does, he can see every attack coming. Helicopter Hair and Airplane Hair tried to form a team during the culling game, hitting their foes from the sky. They both had the same basic deal, turning their hair into a method of transport. Airplane Hair was faster and was strong enough to knock someone through buildings. Still, its user was defeated by a small rock. Yes, it was a cursed energy infused small rock, but still, that's embarrassing, and it's key to this technique that the non-hair part of the sorcerer's body is weak. Helicopter Hair did a bit better, but Yuji was able to take down that sorcerer with his fists. Hair techniques in general aren't good. Scorpion Hair is so weak that I'm not even sure it does damage. Now let's amp things up a bit. Star Rage almost destroyed the world. Like we said earlier, cursed energy is not a hard limit so long as you stay within the rules. In this case, Star Rage allowed Yuki Tsukumo to create a black hole, something that would risk sucking in the entire planet. She can increase her mass, and she's able to keep doing it to the most logical extreme possible. There isn't an upper limit, but even something that powerful has a clear counter. Kenjaku beat it easily with Anti-Gravity System, Kaori Itadori's cursed technique. That was strong enough to nullify the black hole's effects on his body. Every technique has a weakness, a counter. There's no perfect defense or offense. The Hasaba twins both have cursed techniques linked to the stuff they carry. Mimiko can force people to hang themselves using her plush toy and a noose. Nanako can use her phone to edit reality. She just has to take a photo of something, edit it, and the world will match. Principal Gyakuganji rocks out, blasting people with sonic attacks. Chizuru has black claws for melee fighting. And Sukuna, well, Sukuna's interesting. His techniques focused on slashing motions, cleave, dismantle, and even his new curtain of slashing techniques. But during his Shibuya incident fight with Jogo, all of a sudden, Sukuna gained access to fire. Fire that could overwhelm Jogo, the guy who burns hotter than a volcano. Does Sukuna have flame as part of his cursed technique? Or does he have the ability to copy his opponent's cursed technique, doing whatever they can do, but better? Whatever the case, those are all the unique cursed techniques. But we still got the inherited ones to cover. The most famous of these is the Limitless, the Gojo clan's passed down technique. The Limitless is a full command over matter. All of Satoru Gojo's techniques come from it, creating a distance between himself and his opponent and manipulating energy for massive explosions. Everything comes from Limitless, and it takes a lot of power to do that. Gojo's 6 eyes are vital to how he can use it, but that is not a cursed technique. They're just a tool that he uses to manipulate his energy output. As powerful as Gojo is, he only got that way due to this combination. There aren't firm rules on what he can do with the Limitless, but it takes him a great deal of cursed energy to throw out these powerful attacks. Without the 6 eyes, he would be way less of a threat. Next is the one power we've seen overcome the Limitless, the Zenin clan's 10 Shadows technique. It gives the user some ability to control and manipulate shadows, but the most potent ability comes from summoning Shikigami, bound spirits that serve the sorcerer if they're able to defeat them. The most powerful Shikigami, Mahoraga, is almost unbeatable, able to adapt to whatever force is used against it. Interestingly though, the Zenin have two different inherited techniques. Projection sorcery is based on the principles of animation. Anything the user touches gets 24 frames per second to move in. If the sorcerer touches an enemy and they disobey that, they get trapped in an animation frame for 1 second. If the sorcerer uses projection on themselves, they get more control of how they move. They can use those 24 frames to reach speeds as high as Mach 3. If the user is able to physically stand it, that is. That leaves the last of the big three Jujutsu clan's hidden techniques, the Noritoshi's blood manipulation. They can do a bunch of stuff with blood, directly controlling it to use it as a projectile, injecting poison into their opponents, or puppeteering their movements. We've even seen an advanced user create new creatures with it. Noritoshi Kamo used blood manipulation to create the death painting wounds, and two of them got a variant of it, Rot Technique. It's a bit more limited, letting Iso and Kechizu control their own corrosive blood, forming weapons out of it. With cursed speech, the user can just say a word and control or hurt people. It hurts the vocal cords and needs a lot of management, but there's a ton of potential there. They just have to figure out the right word for their situation. But did you notice the theme for the inherited techniques? If you write off projection sorcery, these are all extremely broad abilities. We saw more out of Gojo than anyone else, but all these techniques are extremely versatile. There are a bunch of options of how you use them, more than most of the personal techniques we went over earlier. This was the thing that set up the three great families of Jujutsu, powerful and versatile abilities that their main heirs would get a lot of use out of. But now that that's all done, we've got curse techniques that any sorcerer can learn to get. Black Flash is technically not a curse technique. It's just a way to use your cursed energy, something any sorcerer can do. It's just a matter of timing, but it needs training to get it down and basically functions as a special move, so we'll count it. When you apply your energy within 0.000001 seconds of a hit, it flashes black, and the destructive power of your hit jumps by 2.5 times its base power. Notably, Black Flash can combine with other curse techniques. Nobara and Nanami have both managed to blend their innate powers with the energy boost. In theory, Black Flash could multiply the power of any other curse technique. In practice though, only a few seem to be able to combine like this. You can even combine it with another learned technique. Bato sword drawing is part of the new Shadow style, allowing sword-using sorcerers to land extremely fast blows. But most learned techniques are the anti-domain type. Hollow Wicker Basket is a pretty good example, removing the domain's barrier. Without that, a domain's perfect hit attack is usually nullified, but that's kind of outdated. Most modern sorcerers use Simple Domain, a part of New Shadow style, to accomplish the same effect, making a small domain bubble inside an existing domain to keep the user safe. Simple Domain has one advantage over Wicker Basket. Forming a new domain allows the user to escape domains that don't focus on a single attack. Fighters like Higuruma or Hakari, who use their domains to power themselves up, would have a surprisingly hard time against a simple domain that's big enough. There are other options though. Falling Blossom of Motion is more of a counterattack, allowing you to hit the domain's user when they try to hit you. Domain Amplification uses a thin layer of your domain to nullify any curse technique that targets you, but it's got a big handicap because it shuts down your innate technique. If you're skilled, you can shift back and forth between amplification and your technique like a shield and a sword, but in theory, that does limit it as a defense. But yeah guys, that is every curse technique explained. In the comments, let us know which one of them is your favorite. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.